Good afternoon. You're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Jes Delos Santos. Let's take a look at how the local bourse closed today, Thursday. Okay, the PSEi extending its rally to a third day today with gains more pronounced, at least for the most part of the session, with shares even inching closer to 7,000 at 6,974. But as you can see in this chart right here, another last minute dumping tempered that increase to just 0.4%, with the main index at least closing the day at 6,915. Overseas investors, for one, selling Philippine stocks yet again, with net sales at 294.3 million pesos. But earlier in the program, Christina Ulang of First Metro Investments said, well, there's a bit of foreign selling. She's saying foreign buying recently is notable, with offshore investors buying at the higher range of the target band. She says this is inspiring as it shows that the Philippines is worthy of foreign money, born out really of optimism on the shift to granular lockdowns to further reopen the economy. Again, that rise in local shares comes ahead of the BSP meeting later today, with consensus expecting the Monetary Board to hold at a record low of 2%. Christina Ulang also says that should at least keep the cost of doing business really low here in the country. Ahead of that decision, lenders also joining the rally here, with the gauge increasing 0.3%, halting a 3-day slump. This as BSP Governor Ben Jokno sees loan demand recovery in the coming months. That's on the back of easy monetary policy and a shift to looser mobility in NCR. Four members at least advanced, with Union Bank leading the climb up 1.8%. But it's not only the lenders, property developers likewise also edged higher, close to 8%. That's amid hopes that the continued loose monetary policy will help boost the property market. Ayala Land leads the gauge up 2.4%, offsetting declines for most of the counter. But today's biggest gainer would have to be Jollibee. That is up 3.8%. That's after its follow-on offering of 8 million shares, with the over-allotment option of as much as 4 million shares. Offer prices at 1,000 pesos each, to be constituted into two series that will be designated as Series A and Series B. Dividend rate for Series A prepared shares is at 3.2821% annually, while for Series B, that's going to be at 4.2405% per annum. JFC again leads advancers as it increases for a second day, now at 203 pesos and 40 centavos a share. Lastly, outside the main index, the other gainer is Emperador, the brandy maker, is eyeing to have no less than half of its sales to be from overseas by 2025. The plan is to expand brandy sales by high single-digit rates, while also doubling revenue from branded single malt whiskey until 2025. Whiskey and brandy sales have grown tremendously since 2016. I mean, whiskey sales back then was only at 11.4 billion pesos. That has increased to close to 16 billion pesos last year. Same with brandy, increasing close to 4 times here, now at 36.9 billion pesos as of 2020. Prior to that news, Emperador closed the session higher by 1.5% to 18 pesos and 20 centavos a share. Here are other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. President Duterte has signed into law a measure taxing POGOs. RA 11590, which had been certified as urgent by the president, imposes a 5% gaming tax on gross gaming receipts or revenues. The law also slaps foreign POGO employees with a 25% withholding tax. It also imposes a 25% income tax on the non-gaming revenues of POGOs. The palace says this measure is part of the government's move to tightly regulate all forms of gambling in the country. 60% of revenues from POGO taxes will be used as funds for universal health care, 20% for the enhancement of health facilities, and the remaining 20% for so-called sustainable development goals. The government earlier said that it's expecting to raise more than 120 billion pesos in revenue over the next 4 years through this POGO tax law. Meanwhile, the Octa Research Group says the COVID-19 reproduction number in Metro Manila has dropped below 1, but the group warns we're not out of the woods yet. Speaking on One News Now, Professor Guido David reports that the rate of infection in NCR is decreasing, but he notes infections remain above the 4,000 per day level, which means hospitals will remain full for quite some time. David believes, however, that COVID-19 cases in the country has already peaked almost 2 weeks ago when 26,000 new cases were recorded on September 11. Meanwhile, vaccine czar Carlito Galvez has proposed to start vaccinating minors aged 12 to 17 by mid-October, despite calls of provinces for additional vaccine supplies. Galvez says there's actually an excess supply for inoculation of minors, with some 20 million doses expected to arrive by the first week of October on top of the 23.7 million shots in stock. Now, as more countries around the world reopen their borders, Philippine Airlines and Cebu Pacific are calling on the government to ease travel restrictions too. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez gives us the front seat to the story.
18 months of passenger limits, Philippine Airlines and Cebu Pacific are beginning to push back. Both major airlines say it's time to either raise the passenger cap or get rid of it altogether. Currently, all airlines share a cap of 2,000 passengers a day. Pre-pandemic, they were flying as many as 40,000 a day.
We're not even appealing for tourism's sake. We are appealing for an opening up, raising the cap at the very least on the international arriving passengers just to be able to bring home our OFWs.
They are also pushing for more uniform and simplified travel requirements. Current rules are often dependent on LGUs and can change all of a sudden.
If a local government change the requirements, it takes time for the information to actually get to our passengers, especially if people have already taken an RT-PCR test, which is also very expensive.
A recent study by PAL found that air travel can be safe given some precautions. PAL's data showed PCR testing within 3 days before departure greatly reduced the risk of the virus spreading. As such, both carriers are now calling for more relaxed rules for vaccinated passengers, as well as shorter quarantines.
When you compare, for example, Davao and Subic, where we were rerouting flights there, positivity rate of yung mga passengers that came into Davao was 2.5 times lower than in Subic. So we want to apply that.
In the new proposal, someone who's vaccinated and tested negative can be home in as little as 4 days upon arrival. PAL is planning to pilot this on its North America route before rolling it out to other international destinations.
The aviation industry, as you know, is one of the hardest hit sectors in the pandemic. In the first half of the year, Cebu Pacific lost more than 13 billion pesos, while PAL nearly lost 17 billion. The flag carrier recently filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in the US, though it says it will exit that soon.
Before the end of the year, we will already be out of the process and be back to sort of regular financial operations.
Around the world, countries are beginning to reopen their borders too, as more people get vaccinated against COVID. Pamela Vasquez, we are One News.
A farmers group expects farm gate prices of palay to further drop in the coming months. The Federation of Free Farmers says palay prices were trading at 12 to 15 pesos per kilo, and this may continue its decline come harvest season in October and November. Latest data from the PSEi show that farm gate prices of palay average at 16 pesos and 94 centavos per kilo in the first 6 months. That's nearly 3% lower than the same period last year. To address the issue, Agriculture Secretary William Dar is now urging local governments of top rice-producing provinces to buy palay from their local farmers. Okay, to find out how the DA at least is planning to further support the sector ahead of that fear from certain corners of the farming sector, we have on the show Agriculture Assistant Secretary Noel Reyes. Good afternoon, Asset Reyes.
Good afternoon, Jes. Good afternoon, reporters. Po sa ating lahat.
Okay, as a Reyes, yesterday we did talk to the Federation of Free Farmers, and they say that one of the factors here as to why there has been a significant drop in palay prices is due, of course, to the importation of rice, as stipulated, of course, under the rice tarification law. Would you say how much of a factor really is the importation of rice when it comes to the falling price of palay?
No, not much, Jess, because it's harvest season, and again, um, it's just traditional supply and demand thing. So again, what they're complaining about is the falling prices, which is expected because they're citing the low end of the wet palay, no, yung not the dry one. So the prices of wet palay, freshly harvested, range from about 13 to 15 pesos, an average of 14. And for the dry palay, which means 14% moisture content, it ranges from 16 to high of 20 for region 1. For region 2, fresh palay ranges from 13 to 15 and dry from 17 to 19. Region 4B, 13 to 15. For dry, it's 17 to 19. For Bicol region, the wet ranges from
Okay,
14 to 1550. Okay,
okay.
so again,
To
yes,
better
yes, yes.
contextualize these figures as a Chris, can you give us an idea? These are the prices, at least currently. This is the price level for palay, as you have mentioned.
Yes.
But how does this compare to figures from last year? Was there also still a drop?
No, considering the prices then were ranging also from that level, 12 to 16 pesos for the wet, and the dry ranges from 16 to 20 pesos
Okay.
for the dry pallet.
Okay. Now, given that, what level of support at least can the DA provide here for our farmers, considering that they are appealing that maybe if there's a possibility to at least limit the level of importation, especially this coming harvest season? Is that a possibility?
We cannot limit, but we can manage the release of the import permits, so SPSIC, depending on the quality of the grains. So again, there's no control on that end because trade is liberalized, so anybody can import it. All you can do is manage them. The issue ones can be managed, and we can talk to the importers to bring in their rice, imported rice, after the harvest season, not during.
Okay. But are you also looking at the possibility of at least coming up with safeguard duties to at least better support the farmers or to protect them at least with the influx of rice importation?
So what we're doing is through the NFA, we're buying the dry palay for 19 pesos, the dry ones, and we're also encouraging the local government units, as you said. The Secretary William Dar has called on them again for the third time, as they did during the past 2 years. They invested 6 billion total last year, and again, we're looking forward to the same amount, approximating the money or the fund for by the NFA for palay procurement at 7 billion. So again, we're looking, and also big farmers cooperatives and associations are buying, especially in Region 2.
But how much of a boost really is this LGU procurement? Isn't this just a band-aid solution for the sector?
No, no, it's not. No, it's not. Since 2019, they've been buying. They're buying much compared to similar to the volume bought by the NFA at 7 billion a year. So again, last year they bought 6 billion worth of palay from their farmers.
Okay, one other issue that they were raising, cost of rice production. I mean, you have the RCEP, the Rice Competitiveness Enhancement Fund, that's meant to lower cost of production, but it seems as though they're not feeling it on the ground.
Now, what? Yes, this is the third year of the RCEP. So again, what we're doing is that distributing money for giving money to agencies for them to buy farm machineries and seeds distributed to RCEP beneficiaries. So that's about 10 billion a year. 5 billion goes to farm machines, 3 billion for seeds, and 1 million each for credit and training. So again, we're doing great on that end. We've distributed, say for instance, this wet season, we delivered about 1.8 million bags of seeds free to farmers, benefiting 680,000 farmers who planted about 777,000 hectares again. And also for farm machineries, we've distributed thousands of farm machinery benefiting 3,800 farmers, cooperatives, and associations. So again, that's a lot of money. And again, this year, starting October, we'll be distributing 5,000 pesos cash, as ayuda to rice farmers tilling 2 hectares and below. We'll be using excess taxes collected in 2019 and 2020, totaling 7 billion pesos. So again, that's the support we're providing our rice farmers this year.
Okay, at least there's ayuda that farmers can expect before the year ends. Lastly,
Yeah.
before we let you go, Asik Reyes, rice inventory, it's lower compared to levels that we saw last year. Are we becoming less and less self-sufficient when it comes to rice? And how is the sector planning to turn things around?
No, we're looking the rice supply outlook for the rest of the year is good. We're looking at about 95 days supply
Mhm.
excess for the rest of the year. So similar to last year, what we're seeing is a record harvest of palay this year. So we hope to top the 19.4 million metric tons of palay in 2020 to about more than 20 million metric tons this year, the highest in the history of the country.
All right, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Again, is Agriculture Assistant Secretary Noel Reyes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jess. And on behalf of Secretary William Dar, maraming salamat po sa ating.
And those are the biggest stories this trading day, September 23, 2021. Catch Businessworld live again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. for the market open and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Jes Delos Santos. We are One News. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines.